All right. Okay, cool. That looks like a pretty good vantage point. I think I might scoot you a wee bit closer just so I can read the chat a little better. I honestly thought this would give me a bit of an opportunity to evaluate my framing, but apparently no. So here we are. You get to watch all that. So hi, I am Marie Rama from Humblebee Me, and today we're going to be making some hand wash. And so I think I've done a pretty good job of putting everything I need on this table, but if not, I might just sort of boogie off screen for a while and grab things as we need them. So yes, hand wash. Remembering I made notes and I don't have them, so I'm sorry. First ever live stream of this variety. I'll be right back. I am so appreciating all the things that I can edit out when I don't do things live. How is everybody doing? I know it's pretty crazy time that we are living through right now, and I mean the weather in Canada is cooperating to a degree in that it is still pretty cold and wintry out, so I'm not sad about not being outside because it's still snowing. All right, let's grab my notes so we can dive in. I will endeavor to be more prepared for more of these in the future now that I sort of know that this thing just goes, all right, and you're live, go. All right. So yes, we are making hand wash today. We're going to talk about a couple different ways to make hand wash, and we're going to talk about how to do it pretty simply. Hello from London, Argentina, oh my gosh, Mexico. Wow, this is amazing, guys. Well, hi from Calgary. So we're going to look at how to do kind of the thinner foaming hand washes and then thicker ones that come out of pumps. Of course, they do both foam when you agitate them, but these ones are usually called foaming hand washes because they come out of the foamer, like out of the lid as this great big poof of foam, whereas these come out as more of a sort of a viscous liquid that you work up. And so the cleansing ingredient in these hand washes is surfactants. And so we commonly call these sorts of things hand soap. They're not technically soap to a formulator, to a soap maker. Soap is saponified fats. So you'd use something like sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, and you mix that up with fats in precise measurements and ratios, and that is how you make sort of true soap. And soap is a type of surfactant. It's an anionic surfactant, and a very old one, at that, very old-fashioned one. So we are using a different type of surfactant today. So these are more modern surfactants, and sort of as part of an endeavoring to keep this on the simpler side, I'm going to be using some pre-blended ones. And so when we formulate with surfactants, you generally want to mix a couple different kinds of surfactants together, surfactants with different charges, so anionic or negatively charged ones, non-ionic or non-charged ones, and amphoteric ones that have variable charges. And you want to mix the different charges to create a gentler product. That does, however, mean, though, that you end up needing a couple different types of surfactants, right? Like you need that anionic one, that non-ionic one, that amphoteric one. And if you are new to working surfactants, that can be an annoying hurdle, right? Saying like, before you can make anything, you need to buy at least 3 new ingredients. So different manufacturers create sort of prefabricated blends that make it so you only have to buy one bottle. So I have 2 different ones here. I have gone and linked several ones that you can buy in the description box below, and then I also made sure to link to the page on Humblebee Me that has links to places where you can buy these sorts of ingredients all over the world. Right now it is a little weird. As I've been clicking around, I've noticed that most of the online suppliers that we buy ingredients from this hobby, they are they're still available to get like the surfactants, but oh my gosh, if you want to buy aloe vera, carbomer is really hard to find, high proof isopropyl alcohol, pretty much anything that you can use to make hand sanitizer is impossible to find. Most of the companies are shipping much more slowly than they usually would, or they've reduced the amount of orders that they're accepting, or they're not accepting new orders until they catch up, or they're not shipping sort of outside of their own country, so there are some additional challenges that we're dealing with right now, but generally speaking, the ingredients that we're using today are ones that you can still get, so you can still make this at home. So we've got two different prefab blends here. This one is BSB. This is made by Stepan, which is one of the many companies that manufacture the types of ingredients that we use in these sorts of things. And then this one is called Isolux Ultra Mild. So I'm going to be mostly using this one today, but they're both really lovely. They're one bottle, super easy to use. You can see that they're liquid, so they incorporate really, really nicely. So yeah, we're going to be using these as our cleansing ingredients. So this is sort of the alternative to the soaps. I've had a lot of people say, oh, what is it that like really cleans your hands, and what is it that makes it work? And it's these ingredients. It is the surfactants. And so yeah, soap is a surfactant. We are using different types of surfactants. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of some of the benefits of working with surfactants. So if you are a relatively new maker, soap making is an art all unto itself that requires sodium hydroxide, or potassium hydroxide, depending on if you're making liquid or solid soaps. It requires some safety equipment, and it requires a decent amount of know-how and some confidence. And then if you're making bar soap, you also have to let it age for usually at least 3 weeks before you can use it. It can be a little bit of kind of a bummer if you need a new hand wash right away. So yeah, I find surfactants, especially these liquid ones, are a lot easier to work with in making soap. Soap making is certainly awesome and super fun and all these good things, but it is harder than what we're going to do today and more time consuming. And another major benefit of surfactants is that they can be acidic. And so if you try to acidify soap, if you try to lower the pH of soap to the point at which it is it is acidic instead of basic, it ceases to be soap. And so Professor Kevin Dunn has this ongoing sort of challenge. Hey, where he says, like, send me some soap that you have made that's acidic soap and show me that it can be done. And I remember asking him about this when I met him a couple years ago, and he said that nope, still nobody's ever managed to do that, because when you add enough acid to soap to make it acidic, it ceases to be soap. It breaks down. So that's kind of cool, but it does mean that because our skin is mildly acidic, it makes it hard to make, you can't make acidic soap. And it is easier on our skin, especially if you are doing a lot of hand washing, as I think many of us are right now. I hope many of us are. If you're not, start, finger wag, etc., etc. Yeah, so it's much easier on our hands to have a mildly acidic product, and that is another major bonus of using surfactants rather than soap. So yes, we are using pre-made ones today, and I'm going to be using this one here. I've drafted up a couple of really simple formulations here. Something I highly recommend checking out, and again, this is linked in the description box below, is a post and a video that I did on formulating with spreadsheets. Very sexy, very exciting, love me some spreadsheets. Make them do the math for you. So I think kind of going through that and pairing it with what we talk about today should get you set up really well. So we're going to start with a crazy, crazy, crazy simple one. And as we go, I'm going to be watching for questions in the chat here. But I want to talk through, like, here's the easiest way we could make this. And then here's the thing that people often ask me about doing, and here's how we could do that. So I'm going to fire up my scale here, clear up a bit of a working space. I've got some beakers. So we're just going to be doing little wee 100-gram batches today, because I'm probably going to make at least 3 or 4 batches of hand wash. But usually you would want to make more than that, because you'll power through 100 grams of hand wash pretty quickly. So I usually make closer to like 500 grams. And again, that post on how to use spreadsheets will help you scale things. So I'm just going to pop on some gloves here and fire up my scale. These gloves fit really well, but it doesn't mean they're a little hard to get on. And I have been re-wearing and reusing the same pair of nitrile gloves now for at least a month. I've offered my remaining stash to a friend of mine who's a nurse if she ends up needing them. So I'm trying to make these bad boys last as long as humanly possible. So this first formulation that we're going to make, 4 ingredients, crazy, crazy simple. So we're going to have our surfactant, that's our cleansing ingredient, some water, of course. We have our preservative. This is liquid Germall Plus, and we have some vegetable glycerin. You could kind of say that the vegetable glycerin is optional, but it's a great humectant. It's really inexpensive, and it does help make this hand wash a little gentler on the hands. Because again, with the frequent washing, it is so hard on our hands. So we're going to start with 15 grams or 15% vegetable glycerin. So vegetable glycerin, yeah, is a humectant, and humectants help our products in quite a few ways in our skin. One of the big ones that big things that they do in our products is they help keep our products from drying out too quickly. So if you let the lid off of something, it doesn't dry out too fast, but it also helps hold water to the skin and slow or reduce water loss. Okay, 15 grams. Booyah. There's 25% of our ingredients in here. Got our liquid Germall Plus, so we're going to need half a gram of that. Scale turned off. I do have a scale that doesn't turn off automatically all the time, but it has really, really, really loud beeping noises when you press the buttons, and I thought that would be really annoying in a live stream, so I haven't gone with that one for this one, but who knows, if this keeps turning off on me, I might snap and switch to that one. All right, so there's our preservative, and now we're going to add the BSB surfactant blend, and so we're going to need 30 grams of that. And so when you're choosing, like, this general formulation should work with pretty much any kind of pre-blended surfactant that you buy, but please make sure you are reading the description and seeing what the general recommended usage rate for the blended product is. Usually it's kind of 20 to 40%, so I'm kind of splitting the difference here with 30. But yeah, if you're buying a product and you're looking at it and it says the maximum recommended usage rate tops out at 10%, definitely don't put 30% in the product. Use some common sense there and do some research into your products so you know what you're using. And I do have a couple blog posts on the blog as well on how to research your ingredients, and I highly recommend reading those as well. Okay, we're almost there. Aha! All right. Okay. 30.04 grams. It's okay. 0.04 grams. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to give this a bit of a stir here. I'm stirring it now because we don't have the water in here yet. So it's not going to foam up a ton. Once we get water in here, you're not really going to want to be like, because, well, yeah, it's going to do what hand wash is going to do, and it's going to foam up. Okay, we have a question here from Dark Moon Essentials. If you don't have this surfactant, what else would you recommend? I have several surfactants, but no blends. So if you already have surfactants, amazing, great, you can easily make your own blends. So if you have a sort of a preferred blend using usually one amphoteric one, the most common amphoteric surfactant you're probably most likely to have is cocamidopropylbetaine. So some of that, and then I would do an anionic and a non-ionic if you have sort of some of both. So the combination that I used recently in my hand wash for lots and lots of hand washing is a combination of cocamidopropylbetaine, caprylyl and capryl glucoside, and sodium lauryl sulphate. That's great, but if you don't have the sodium lauryl sulphate, you could swap it out for a different anionic liquid surfactant. For the glucoside, there's a lot of different glucosides out there as well. So there's cocoa glucoside, deco glucoside, lauryl glucoside. Something to keep in mind is that a lot of the other glucosides are a lot more basic than the caprylyl and capryl glucoside, which is naturally acidic. So that'll be a thing where if you are using something like cocoa glucoside instead of caprylyl and capryl glucoside, you're probably going to want to downwards adjust the pH of the final product with something acidic. So some a citric acid solution would be perfect for that. If you check out on Humblebee Me, I have a rosé hand wash that uses Isolux Ultra Mild, and I believe in the substitutions list for that, I have suggested a DIY blend that you could do as well. So there's kind of some starting points. But there we go. That's nice and uniform. Let's see how close I can get here. Let's see. Yeah, all right. Yellow liquid. So now we're just going to add the water. And there's somebody, Jess was asking, what did you just say? Like, I'm a beginner and none of that surfactant stuff made any sense. Totally feel you. what we're doing here is much more beginner friendly. So if you're a beginner, just buy a pre-blended surfactant concoction, and that will absolutely 100% work and is way easier than kind of getting a bunch of different surfactants and learning all about them and then blending them on your own. So now we're just going to add some water. I am pouring this on top of that little glass stirring rod to try and mix up the smallest amount of lather as possible. We need 54.5 grams of this. Already getting some bubbles going on top. And so if you don't have distilled water, you could, if it's one of those things that people in your area are buying up like crazy and you just can't find it, I threw a link down in the description box below about the different types of water that we use in formulating, and it does talk about kind of the difference between tap water and distilled water, and why you might use one over the other. If the tap water where you live is pretty good, you can use that instead. One of the things that you probably will want to check though is the pH of your tap water, because if it is sort of on the higher side, higher than distilled water, which tends to be acidic, as discussed in that article I linked below, you're going to want to, again, down adjust the pH of your hand wash so that it is mildly acidic. Okay, Denise is asking, how about adding essential oils to these? That is in the plan. We're going to be talking about that later. So we're just starting with like crazy simple four ingredients now. So I'm going to see if I can get this a little closer to you so you can kind of see a little hazy and bubbly, and there's still some streaks of the surfactant, like it's not immediately incorporating. So I'm just going to kind of put this aside. You can see that we're getting some bubbles on there. So, I'm not going to stick like an immersion blender or something in there and try to blend it all up. It would probably work, but I think I would also get bubbles everywhere. So we're just going to set that aside and let time kind of do our work for us. And we're going to make another one. So a question that I've got a couple times on the lots and lots of hand washing videos is how to add oil to your hand wash. And so fairly standard thing, oil and water don't mix on their own. So I have a bit of oil here, but this is not what we're going to use, because when we want to make things as sort of as simple as possible, we want to use something, an emollient effectively. Oils are generally emollients, so we're going to be looking at an emollient that is water soluble. You could kind of call it like a water soluble oil, but it's been modified, right? Like it's not an oil, it's a modified oil. So you can kind of call it like a water soluble emollient. And so in the lots and lots of hand washing video that I did recently, we used Cremoleant SCE. Today I'm going to use Olivem 300. So this is Olivem 300. It's sometimes referred to as water soluble olive oil. Not totally correct, but it's sort of a modified olive oil that self-disperses in water nicely. So it's not just going to kind of float to the top, which of course is not what we want. Now, a thing to keep in mind with putting oil in foaming products is that it is going to reduce lather. And so a lot of people really associate the amount of bubbles that you get in something with how effective it is, which is not necessarily true. So just keep in mind that if you are adding oil to something, it is going to reduce the amount of bubbles that you end up getting in the end product. But really what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, include this in our formulation at 5%. So we're going to use 5% Olivem 300, 5% less distilled water, and then other than that, everything is exactly the same. So, woohoo, again, very simple. So we're going to start with our 15 grams of vegetable glycerin. So if you make glycerites, this would be an amazing place to use a glycerite as well. Lisa Lees has an entire book on them. It's like to put it very crudely, it's basically like a super cool infusion with a base of glycerin, and then you can do all kinds of fresh fruits and whatnot. And because of the extreme humectant properties of glycerin, it allows you to do things like make an amazing shelf-stable strawberry infusion, and then you can have a strawberry scented. Wow. So yeah, check out her book for that if you are curious. And we're going to add 5 grams Olivem 300, not Not Olivem 1000. Olivem 1000 is a solid, complete emulsifying wax, and they're really different products. Made by the same company and kind of part of the same like line of products, and they all have all of them in the name, but the 1000 and the 300 are not at all interchangeable. All right, so we've got glycerin, our Olivem 300. We're going to add our preservative. So again, 0.5 gram liquid Germall plus. And our surfactant. I just thought I would take a note to sort of point out. So my liquid Germall plus doesn't come in these bottles, but I have repackaged a bunch of my more sort of viscous ingredients that I often like to dispense in tiny amounts into these squeezy PET bottles with these turret caps. So I also do this with my vitamin E and other types of preservatives. Some of the companies that I buy from, like Windy Point, actually sells their Optifin Plus and other preservatives in bottles like this. So I'll just switch out the cap, and it's amazing because you can just like lightly squeeze and dispense the drops that you need, and it's amazing. All right, now we need our 30 grams of the BSB surfactant. $30 grams really does seem like an awful lot, but this is what's recommended for this product. Right. So we've incorporated the glycerin, the surfactant, the preservative, the Olivem 300. So now I'm going to give this a bit of a stirring here as well, and then we're going to add the water to this one too. Let's check out some of the questions that we've seen coming through here. Would you do equal parts of the different surfactants if you're doing a blend? You totally could. Different surfactants have different sort of strengths and weaknesses, so research your individual surfactants. It's also worth noting that some surfactants are way more concentrated than others. So cocamidopropylbetaine is about 30% active, whereas caprylyl and carbogglucoside is 60% active, and sodium lauryl sulphate, the stuff that I have in a semi-liquid form, it's a very, very, very viscous liquid, it's only 26% active. So if you were doing equal parts cocamidopropylbetaine at 30% active and the caprylyl and carbogglucoside at 60% active, if it was 10 grams of each, you would still technically have twice as much caprylyl and carbogglucoside in there because it's twice as concentrated. So yet another fun thing to consider. If you visit humblebeeandme.com/surfactants, I have more information about that there. All right, so now we just need to add some water to this, fire that scale back up, give this a little poke while we're at it. Doing pretty good. Definitely have some blobby bits still going on in there. Good. All right, so now this one is going to need 49.5% or 49.5 grams of water, which is 5 grams less than we did in the previous one, so that we could make the room for the Olivem 300. Right. So same with this one, it is going to just kind of take a little while to fully incorporate. Somebody asking, can I add SLSA, sodium lauryl sulfate acetate, with cocamidopropylbetaine? You can. Challenge there, of course, is that SLSA is solid, so you'll need a dust mask for that. Those can be pretty hard to come by these days if you don't already have one. And then that is going to make kind of a paste that you're going to have to sort of soak for a while before it's really going to dissolve. Like if you think this is taking a while, that'll take a lot longer. Another thing that I often get asked about is adding color. So I thought we would add color to one of these. It'll also help differentiate it from the other, since they look pretty darn similar. So I'm going to use this water-soluble dye. So when you want to incorporate colors into something like this, you want it to be water soluble. So something like an iron oxide is not a great choice because it's insoluble. So it's just gonna like sink to the bottom. If you are making a thickened hand wash, you can use micas with some kind of degrees of success. I have a hand wash in my downstairs bathroom made that's thickened, that's made colored with mica, and it's been sitting undisturbed for like 9 months and hasn't really noticeably settled out much. But yeah, if you aren't thickening it at all, as I'm sure you can imagine, if we had something insoluble in this, we would just have the insoluble powder sitting at the very bottom. So for these colorants, they are so crazy potent that I'm not going to actually weigh it out because my scale won't register. We're aiming for less than 0.01% here. Something super cool about this is called a teal blend. You would never guess that this is going to turn out teal, but I'm really excited to show you guys it turning teal magically on this camera. So what I like doing is dipping a little glass rod in. You can see there's almost no product on there. Dip that in there and you can immediately see it changing color. Like how cool is that, right? So these are double bagged to hopefully prevent me from dyeing my skin too much. They're crazy, crazy potent. And this dye here is probably one of the top reasons I'm happy I'm wearing gloves so I don't end up with green fingers for the next couple days. All right. Letting that dissolve. Go back to our first one here. So you can see, I might walk around a bit and give you a better view here. Bubbles! We're starting to get, yeah, more noticeable. Oop! Pardon me while I wipe that off my computer. I know what I'm doing, I swear. All right, so this is starting to be uniform. And so this is the super, super simple one that we did earlier. You could stop here. If you were gonna stop here, this is quite thin. It would be a good option for a foamer top bottle. So that's one of these bad boys. You really don't want your foamer top bottle hand washes to have much viscosity to them. If you try sending something with really any meaningful amount of viscosity through one of these bottles, it kind of just starts going at you as you pump it out, if that makes any sense. It just doesn't work that well. So you want to have it be nice and thick. So you just don't thicken your hand wash and you're done. Et voila. And so this is the type of, so this is with the Isolex Ultra Mild. And you get oodles and oodles and oodles of lovely bubbles. So if you wanted to, at this point in time, we could put this in a bottle just like that, and that would be it. You would be done. I know it. So when it comes to these containers and the pump top, like the more standard pump top ones as well, the pumping mechanism is impossible to clean. So what you're going to want to do is, it's super, super wasteful to like throw one of these out every single time you use like 250 milliliters of hand wash. This one is from Yellowbee, but they're pretty readily available on Amazon, and most DIY suppliers will sell them as well. Just keep filling it up. Make sure that you're always sending properly preserved formulations through the pump. Don't try to flush it out with water that is, unpreserved water, because you're going to end up with kind of a, I'll pull this out here and you can really get a feel for just how big this kind of foaming unit is. You'll always end up with some water in there that then starts growing mold. And at some point in time, you will take a look at your beautiful hand wash and you will see that the pumping mechanism has this slurry of green mold in it. So, please don't do that. If you just keep refilling it, that's fine, as long as you're always sending a properly preserved formulation through here. Just don't try to clean it and then refill it, because that's kind of where things go cattywampus. But I didn't want to, I don't want to make another foaming hand wash. I'm going to thicken this one up a bit. So we have a couple different options when it comes to thickening these sorts of things. The easiest, cheapest one is salt. Salt doesn't work with everything, but it does work with a lot of them, and according to the documentation from Stepan, salt will work here. You do need to be careful with adding salt. You don't just kind of want to, because there's a curve there. It'll get more and more and more viscous, and then when you tip the top of that curve, I'm talking a lot about curves these days in the media, different type of curve, salt curve, get to the other side, and then the viscosity starts going down again, which if you're looking to make something very thick would obviously be a little bit disappointing. So we want to make sure we're adding small amounts of salt so that we get where we want to be without pushing it too far. So I've got this wee little cup here that I'm going to add like 0.5 gram of salt to. And this is just table salt, straight up NaCl salt. Nothing fancy. It's not Dead Sea salt. It's not Himalayan salt. This is, I literally took this out of my kitchen cupboard before setting up to film salt. So if you don't have a scale, you're going to need one. They're pretty readily available on Amazon. I have a FAQ on my website called something to the effect of, what should I consider when buying a scale? And I highly recommend giving that a read. But it has a link to a couple scales that I've had, two or three cheaper ones that are quite beginner friendly, and then a couple of the more expensive ones. The cheap ones are great. I just find that they break fairly quickly. Ooh, already getting some nice noticeable thickening here. Booyah. And the more expensive ones are, more expensive, but they last longer. So kind of up to you, but I've got model names and links there. So I'm going to write down the adding of the salt in my notes. Something to note is that surfactants and fragrances and essential oils can sometimes be a little bit funny. If you have been following me for a while, you might remember a post I did last year called The Tale of the Mysterious Curdling Body Wash. And it's basically about how I discovered that if you combine caprylyl and capryl glucoside, thicken it with hydroxyethyl cellulose, and then add a fragrance or an essential oil that contains benzyl benzoate, it goes all kinds of cattywampus. And I don't fully understand why, but I do know it's the benzyl benzoate that kind of shoves things into cattywampus territory. So it's worth a read, but what I would recommend doing is every time you're making something like this, if you are adding a scent to it, thicken it last. Because if you kind of make a big batch and then split it up and then add the scents to different things, I've definitely done that before and come back and had some completely liquefy, like go from being super gorgeous and viscous to being just so thin that they were like leaking out of the toddle that I put them in. So yeah, just a thing to keep in mind. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. So this is already significantly more viscous, but I am going to add another 0.5 gram of salt, and then we can check on that bad boy. And I'm going to thicken that one a different way. So you can see a couple different ways to do that. And please do check out the description box. As with all my videos, I made sure to put a bunch of useful stuff down there, links to other formulations that I've shared, links to some of my favorite hand cream formulations as well, because oh my gosh, sure need a lot of that these days. All right, so now we're up to a total of 1 gram of NaCl in there, which is approximately 1%, not quite, because now we've got more than 100 grams in here, but roughly that. Ooh, yeah, more, yes. Oh gosh, guys, this is gorgeous. Magic. All right, let's go back to our green one. Can you tell which one of these was the one that got dipped in the dye? I don't know if you can really see, but this one's like neon green, and this one's not. All right, just gonna get us down to one little glass stirring rod here. I've actually got an old like Tupperware tub that I just leave under the table that I put all my dirty dishes in, and then it gets ferried off to the kitchen once it's full and I need to wash things. Yeah, Denise, you're absolutely right. Salt is tricky because it doesn't work with all the surfactants. Yeah, totally true. When you are researching your ingredients with this sort of thing, read what your supplier tells you about the product. But all of these things are branded products. Like these are custom branded blends. So Voyager, I don't think gives a ton of information about this, but Stepan, the company that makes it, does. So if you Google the Stepan BSB surfactant, you can start to find sample formulations from Stepan using this surfactant, and then you can take a look at them and see, hey, do they thicken it with salt, or does it say somewhere in the description that it thickens with salt? And if they do, woohoo, then you know that will work. If they don't say that, you can always just try adding a little bit of salt to it and see if it gets thicker. But yeah, it's always helpful to Google it first. All right, so this one we're going to thicken with some liquid Crothix. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy easy product to work with for thickening surfactants. So I'm going to start by adding 1 gram of this to our little hand wash here, and making a note of how much is in there. My notebook over here, and then take it off and give that a stir. You usually only need 2 to maybe 4% Crothix to thicken things up. It is quite effective. Question here, can you use hot process or cold process liquid soap as hand wash? Yeah, you can definitely wash your hands with those things. The challenge there, of course, is that they are going to be soap, so they're going to be basic, and so that can be really hard on our hands if you're washing it a lot. If that works for you, amazing. That's fantastic. You know what you like, you know what your skin likes, but I know my skin does a lot better with mildly acidic products than it does with basic ones. So yeah, it's up to you and your skin. Okay, so there we go. We've got our Crothix thickened one here. This is a really lovely viscosity. I'm gonna set that aside. And then we have our salt thickened one, similarly awesome viscosity. And so yeah, the difference between these two is that this one has 5% Olivem 300 in it, and then this one doesn't. So this is 4 ingredients, and this one is 5. Awesome. The last one I wanted to do was incorporating a bit of fragrance and talking about how to add scent to our products in a couple different ways. Scoochie those off to the side here, pull out my notes again. All right. Ooh, before we move on, I also wanted to talk about thickening washes with gums. And so I've had good luck using carrageenan and enjoying the consistency as well, because you can use xanthan gum or guar gum or whatnot, but to my opinion and sensibilities, I find especially xanthan gum, when used as core thickener or a product like this, makes stuff feel like snot. If you like it, sweet. I don't. But I have really enjoyed using carrageenan iota, and so I would probably start with 1 to 2%. You'll want to disperse this in the vegetable glycerin. So at the beginning there, when we're mixing everything together, when we start with the vegetable glycerin, do glycerin, add this, 2%, and then you're going to take 2% off the water to make room for it. Stir it around, make sure everything's thoroughly dispersed. Then you add everything else, and you're going to want to leave it for a while for the gum to swell and thicken and to do its magic. But yeah, that's another way that you can thicken up products if you want to thicken them and salt's not working for you and you don't have Crothix. Oh yeah, and for coloring, in a pinch, you could probably try some food coloring. I don't even own food coloring, but you could probably give it a try. Most food coloring is like FD and C dyes, with an emphasis on the F, for that's the food part. And that's what we use in a lot of our products as well, so it could absolutely be worth a try. Question from Jess here. When I make a batch 6 to 8 bottles worth, would I just calculate accordingly, or do I have to make one at a time? No, calculate accordingly and make a jumbo batch. So if you watch my video on how to make hand wash for lots and lots of hand washing, it's a 500 gram batch. which is a lot. And yeah, you just make it all in one go. Some things take a little bit longer, and like it'll take a little longer maybe for things to dissolve, or if it was a formulation where you needed to heat things, obviously the bigger the batch, longer it takes to heat things, but we don't need to heat these things. So yeah, no, just make it all in one go. Rock and roll. Let's see here. What about hydroxyethyl cellulose in place of xanthan? Yay or nay? Could work. It's just that I've had, and I do love hydroxyethyl cellulose because it also boosts lather when it doesn't go completely cattywampus. So if you go to humblebeeme.com and you search for the mysterious tale of the curdling body wash, you can see some of the like ARG experiences I've had attempting to thicken surfactant-based products with hydroxyethyl cellulose. Okie dokie. Right, making things smell pretty. So you have a couple different options here. The easiest one is to swap out some of the water for a hydrosol. So lavender hydrosol, that's how this one is scented. Challenge there is that that's going to be one of the more expensive ways to scent your products. Very, very easy, on the more expensive side. So that's way number one, and then way number two is going to be incorporating some kind of fragrance or essential oil. So if you are incorporating an essential oil, especially make sure you are familiar with the maximum allowable usage rates for all of the essential oils that you're planning on using. It varies. So I've got an FAQ on that. So I recommend giving that a read. It's got a link to a website that's got some pretty extensive resources on what those maximum usage levels are for different essential oils. Let's see here. You can generally add about 0.2 to 0.5% of an essential oil or a fragrance to a product like this, and the surfactant blend will solubilize that small amount of oil-soluble ingredient. Let's see here. And in this time, I just wanted to say, please don't add a ton of like antibacterial essential oils to, like, don't add like 30 grams of tea tree oil to your hand wash or something like that. That's going to be very irritating to the skin. It's going to, especially in the case of tea tree oil, it's going to smell very overwhelming. It'll probably help with the social distancing because people will smell you coming from a very, very long way. But remember, like, this is a wash-off product, and most of the cleansing benefit that we're getting, like, it's coming from the core function of the product, the surfactant-y goodness. So while adding an essential oil can like boost it, please don't add like a ton of essential oils and then give yourself like a chemical burn or something. Like, please don't. Chemical burns, they're bad experience. Don't do that. All right, we're gonna add some fragrance to this one, and I'm going to be using this one called Ocean Mist from Rustic Essentials, which smells very fresh and whatnot. So this one, we're kind of going back to that first formulation we made. It's only now 0.5% different. We are adding 0.5% of fragrance, so we're taking 0.5% off the distilled water. You could 100% do this with the Olivem version as well. You know, just add 0.5% of the fragrance and then take another 0.5% off the water. So we're going to start with our 15 grams of vegetable glycerin. Thank you guys for giving me an excuse to like put on real clothes and do my makeup and stuff today, because that's not a thing I've been doing very much lately. Had a nice Skype call with my mom the other night, and she was like, I'm happy to see those pajamas I got you for Christmas are getting lots of wear at, like 9 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday. Yeah. All right. We're going to add our surfactant here, so 30 grams of that. Our preservative, so 0.5 gram of liquid Germall Plus. and our fragrance. And so for these fragrances that don't come with little orifice reducers, I bought a huge bag of these adorable little disposable pipettes from SKS out of the States. So that's very useful for this sort of thing. All right. I'm dressed. What's that? PJs all day. I feel you. Except it's been more like PJs all week. Well, all month. I mean, it is only the 5th, but yeah. I usually get dressed for a dog walk at least once a day, so yeah, it's kind of helping me feel a little bit normal. I mean, I do work from home all the time, and that's the thing that I kind of had to start making myself do is get dressed every day because I kind of started to feel it's just kind of started to feel gross just sitting around in my house all day in my comfy pants. So yeah, and if you haven't been getting dressed very often lately, I highly recommend it as a way to just kind of add a little bit more normalcy back into your life. Let's see here. And now it's time for our water. I just need to refill my little, so there's another one of those ingredients, distilled water, that I just kind of repackaged so I can have it in a little squeezy bottle with a smaller opening for easier measuring. I was surprised to see at my local grocery store a week or two ago that people were really clearing out distilled water. It's like, have people ever like drunk distilled water? It doesn't taste very good. Calgary has excellent tap water, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Here's hoping, right? Yeah. All right, 54 grams of this, and I'm just kind of breaking the fall of it on my spatula here to try and reduce the amount of lather that gets kicked up. And that's that. That's all of our ingredients in here. So I'm gonna give this some gentle stirring here. Oh wow. So Vidhi from India is watching, and it's 2:15 in the morning. Wow, I appreciate your dedication. Or also, I hope that you're not still awake because you can't sleep, because that always sucks. Time to thicken this. How should we thicken this? With Crothix or with salt? Type it in the chat while I stir. And yeah, we're almost done here, so I will be kind of answering more questions towards the end. Yes, if you asked a question and it scrolled on past and I haven't answered it, feel free to kind of pop it in again. All right. There we go. We have equal votes for. Okay, there we go. Salt's winning now. Grab our little tiny cup again. So these little bad boys. So I've actually just recently started adding equipment to the Humblebee Me Encyclopedia, which is sort of a helpful place for me to kind of in more detail look at some of the different things that I use that I get questions about. And so these are in there. And I mostly, honestly, use these for when I'm making really colorful cosmetics because they're disposable and they're tiny. So I don't have to try and clean like waterproof eyeliner out of something I want to use again, because man, who has that kind of patience? Not to mention, if we're looking to reduce waste, you're not reducing a lot of waste by spending like half an hour and half a cup of dish detergent trying to get something clean. All right, gonna give this a stir, 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 stir. So that was half a gram of salt, and yeah, that's just plain old table salt. And I suspect we will need a full gram, just like we did with the other one. It's going slowly here. We don't want to tip over to the other side of that salt curve. Oh, hello from Switzerland. Oh, this is so cool. You guys are just from, like, this is like a global Humblebee and Me meetup. Oh, and from Toronto. I went to the university in Toronto. Very fond memories of Toronto. Something that I'm considering doing is hosting some digital Humblebee and Me meetups. So this is, I love hosting Humblebee and Me meetups when I travel. I'm not doing a lot of traveling right now. I was supposed to be going to New York with my mom in a couple weeks, but we just canceled that as well, which is sad, but you know, I'll be back when I can. But yeah, I would love to do some digital Humblebee and Me meetups. And I was thinking of kind of capping the number of people who can join any one of them at like 8 to 10 so that we can actually kind of have a chat, and having like a Zoom meetup and having them on different days of the week and at different times of the day to try and catch people from all kinds of different time zones. And yeah, we could just kind of hang out, and depending on what time it is where you are, maybe you bring like a glass of wine or a cup of tea or some soda or whatever, and we just like hang out and talk about making stuff. And it'll be kind of like yeah, like a little digital Humblebee and Me meetup. So I'm going to add another ½ gram of salt to here. But yeah, I'm planning on probably announcing those through the Humblebee and Me Facebook page. So if you don't like Humblebee and Me on Facebook yet, and you're interested in that, I would go over and follow me on Facebook. Does salt reduce down the lather of the concoction? Not that I have ever noticed, no. Something else that's worth noting is that quite a lot of surfactants already contain salt in them. So if you're looking at the data sheets on them, they'll list the salt concentration. So that's kind of cool. Send some snow over here to Barbados. It is too hot. I would so happily do that. I have been keeping my ice cream on my porch because it is still cold enough to do that. Which, I mean, on the one hand is good because I have a very tiny freezer, and that means I can have more ice cream. Maybe not that great of a thing considering how much exercise I'm getting. Anyhow, yeah, you can have as much snow from Canada as you would like. All right, well, that's about kind of everything that I had planned to make for you. This is the really simple version. So this is 15% glycerin, 30% BSB surfactant blend, 0.5% liquid Germall plus, and 54.5% water. We also call that amount of water QS, or quantity sufficient. It's like the formulation equivalent of like, and water to fill. This one here is 15% glycerin, 30% BSB surfactant blend, 0.5% liquid Germall plus, 5% Olivem 300 as a water-soluble emollient, a small amount of water-soluble dye to make it green, and this one is thickened with Crothix, this one thickened with salt. And then this last one here is basically this one, but with 0.5% fragrance and then 0.5% less water. Yeah, that's it. So I'm just watching for some questions now. I think I'll probably kind of cut this off at about the 1 hour point if YouTube doesn't do that for us. So that gives us about 7 minutes. Can you make amino soap? What is amino soap? While I wait for a reply on that, see if one comes through. Take off my gloves carefully. My hands are very sweaty. Jess asks, do you have a book? I do have a book. It's called Make It Up. It is a book all about how to make all your own makeup. So if you go to my website, I definitely have some links on it, links to it in like the top bar on the website on the desktop version. Yeah, or if you just go to Amazon and search for Make It Up Marie Rama, you'll find it. Let's see here. Can polymers be added to this formulation? Well, polymer is a really, really wide category of ingredient. So I can't really adequately answer that question. Ugh. Ugh. Yuck. Apparently clammy hands. Clammy hands in there. Oh yeah, we should do a little bit of like a lathery bubbles demo. That's why I have a hand towel in here and a quote unquote sink, aka bowl of water. Which one should I try? 1, 2, or 3? Have I written a book on body and face lotions and creams? I have not. But I do have hundreds of formulations on those things on my blog on humblebeeme.com, and many of them will have videos as well. All right, we've got a couple votes here for 2. I'm going to take a little bit of that here. And I'm going to pop over and show you what it looks like in my hand to give you a better idea of how colorful it is, which is not very, right? We don't want it to be really, really strongly colored. In one of the earlier versions I made of this, where I was experimenting with higher concentrations of the dye, I made one that is so red that when you use it, it kind of makes it look like you're hemorrhaging out of somewhere when you watch. So yeah, careful with that. Let's see, heaps and heaps and heaps of bubbles. This moves really, really, really nicely. And I figure let's compare one of the ones that doesn't have the oil, like the Olivem 300 in it as well. I'm gonna very, very clean hands after this. Quite slippery as well. All right, I'll do it this way. So I have noticed that packaging for these sorts of things is also starting to become quite hard to come by on the DIY supply websites. People have bought a lot of it up. So, okay, so I am noticing that we get more bubbles on the one without the Olivem 300, which is 100% what we expected. Have I thought about writing another book? I definitely have. I just haven't yet. But I've definitely thought about it, and I have some ideas, and it's quite daunting trying to find a time to write a book while still creating and running Humblebee and me. I want to. I hope I will. We'll see. I'll keep you posted. But yeah, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. And I can definitely tell a small difference in the amount of lather between the two of them. You know, in terms of like the active surfactant matter, how much surfactant it is in the two of them, it's identical. The Crothix in this one will also sort of make it a little bit milder. I can't say I noticed a huge difference between the two of them just from, you know, a single hand washing, but you might if you have quite sensitive skin or, you know, over extended use. So yeah, in terms of gentleness, kind of to tell. The other thing I wanted to do is just quickly test the pH. So I'm just going to use strips for this because really the level of precision that we want for this is like, if you were looking at a thermometer that you have outside and you're too far away to read the numbers, but there's a gradient and you just kind of want to know, like, is it snow pants weather or t-shirt weather? So that's kind of what we want this to be like, is this mildly acidic? It doesn't need to be, you know, exactly anything because there's nothing in here that's really, really pH sensitive. So that's about, I'll move over here and show you. Kind of in that 5 to 6 range, which is perfect. I'm not going to do all of them because we are kind of running out of time. But yeah, that level of precision for a hand wash, especially when we're using like liquid Germall Plus, and it's a very, very broad range of efficacy for pH. It's mildly acidic, good to go. Kathy's like, I missed your live. This will be available for replay on my YouTube channel, so you can rewatch the whole thing. I know it is really long. That's kind of how live things tend to go. Let's see here. Our stores are short on baby wipes. I make my own, but would like to use a broad spectrum preservative that's safe on baby skin. Any recommendations? My One of the easiest things to do is to look at the baby products that you already buy and see how they're preserved. I know Liquid Germall Plus is not approved for use, and I think it's kids under the age of 3. So you wouldn't want to be using Liquid Germall Plus. I think Optifin Plus would be okay, but yeah, make sure you are doing some research there, and yeah, just see what is in the commercially made baby products that you buy. That's a good place to start. Yeah. All right. Well, it's been almost an hour. I feel like I've been talking for ages. Back's getting kind of sore here, bent over. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something, and I'm planning on doing more of these in the future, so make sure you're on my mailing list so that you get notified about them when they happen. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Come on, end. There we go. End. Okay.